going on, guys? Andrew here, Jordan here, with another Pianote live lesson. What are we doing today?
Sound of Silence. Hey, everybody. We kind of talked a little bit about this one actually last week's lesson, which was on songwriting, and was about different ways to think about melodies. And I had two examples. I had this song, Sound of Silence, Simon Garfunkel, recently revived by The Disturbed of all bands.
Of all bands,
yeah. And then I also had Somewhere Over the Rainbow as another example of the melodies. And I've taught Somewhere Over the Rainbow, but I haven't taught Sound of Silence, and it's in a really unique key, and there's a lot of cool sort of features to the song, so I figured let's do it. Let's dive right into it.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Now, do you have sheet music?
Yeah, we've got sheet music that you can download below the video. You can ask questions below the video as well, and we can answer them on stream or after the fact. So get at us with any questions you might have. So the first thing that I'm going to mention about this song, and the first thing you might notice if you take a look at the sheet music or even just saw what I was playing there, is there's a lot of black keys in this one. This is actually in the key of E flat minor.
Oh, wow.
Or G flat major, if you want to call it that. So you're a guitar player. I understand from my experience anyways, like E flat is a bit of a tough key for guitar players.
There are almost no open chords that you can play.
Right.
Almost none.
Yeah. So there's maybe a similar situation with the with E flat for piano, although I actually find E flat to be really once you can twist your brain into it, it's actually really fun to play and actually quite easy to get your hands under. And that's because you just sort of have to swap your mind around. Instead of thinking to yourself, oh, I've got all these black keys to play. Oh man, I got to, there's 6 of them. Just think about the 2 white keys that you had to play. That's what I always do, right? So basically, you're playing every black key.
Everyone is safe.
Everyone is safe. You can just, you're always going to be in E flat. So the 2 keys that you have to be bearing in mind that are still going to be white keys are going to be F, and they're going to be B. And I'm just going to call it B for simplicity's sake. Technically, this is where music theory gets weird. Technically, this B is actually a C flat in the music theory.
Right.
But for my purposes, and I think for many of you out there, just think of it as B for the purpose of this song here.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So key of E flat minor. So most of this song is built around solid and broken triads. Actually, probably mostly broken triads. The way I played it in the beginning here has this broken sort of rhythm part. The terminology for this style of accompaniment is actually called the Alberti bass.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've talked about that a little bit before.
Yeah, the Alberti bass. So basically all that means is we're popping up from, we start on our 1 of our chord, then we go 1, 5, 3, 5. So bottom, top, middle, top, bottom, top, middle, top. And that pattern is pretty well, it runs all the way through in the left hand there. So maybe to start off this lesson, because I know that's a bit of a tricky thing to get, especially considering that it's the left hand that's playing it, which is always tough. Let's just play that at 60 BPM.
Okay.
So this is going to be really, really slow, but again, it's really important to emphasize that feel. So what I'm going to do, and what you guys can do at home, is just pop back and forth between the 2 main chords that start the song off. So those 2 main chords are E flat minor, so that's E flat, G flat, and B flat, and then D flat. So you just sort of pop down to D flat, F, and A flat. Okay. So we're going to Alberti bass those. Oh, I gotta get my little
I'll let
thing
you
in.
get your ears in
Get
first.
the in-ears? Okay, let's get Alberti bassing. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Here comes D flat. I'm gonna go back to E flat. And back down again. So there you go. That's those are the first two chords, and make sure that you just got that nice and locked down before you get into the right hand stuff, because it's sort of tricky for some people to get that hand independence and get this consistent when we incorporate our right hand. And just looking at the right hand, you can see it comes in bar 3 there, and it's a pretty simple melody. It's actually still the same E flat triad, so it's just the same notes, and it's just 8th notes: E flat, G flat, and B flat. So it starts on beat 2, so it's like a, and then we go down to D flat, and then we just sort of repeat that same process, but this time obviously swap down to D flat. So let's demo that with 60 BPM, and we're going to incorporate both hands.
There's a lot going on rhythmically there.
There's a lot going on rhythmically. I'll give you guys an alternative in a second here, because I know this is like it's a bit of a brain twister here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're right. That's a challenge.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of challenge that, unfortunately, it's just one of those things. It just sort of takes time. It takes a lot of cycling through, especially on the left hand. I find most players, myself included, it's easy to get a consistent left hand pattern done just separately in its kind of isolation.
Yeah.
But when you start to incorporate your right hand as well, it gets that's when all of a sudden your brain kind of checks out. And
yeah. Now, are you also keeping track of like the quarter notes at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can keep track of the quarter notes. Again, it's an 8th note. It's the song is mainly consisting of like 8th notes and whole notes.
Okay.
So I just try to get myself thinking in that kind of pulse.
Yeah.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
That would be how I would recommend to do the same thing.
Yeah.
That makes
so
sense.
even while you're just practicing the left hand, just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and just keep cycling that. This is actually a beautiful little just practice exercise. Mm-hmm. You don't even need to be thinking about it as the song. This is just a good way to kind of warm up.
Yeah.
You can also look at sort of what notes are falling on top of each other in the sheet music. So you can see, for instance, in bar 3 there, you can see that your melody actually starts on the G flat in the bass. So it goes bottom, top, and then it starts. And I find once you start that melody and you realize, okay, now, it's a bit easier to think of because both of your notes or both of your hands rather are playing notes at the same time.
Okay.
It's only those moments where where your notes are kind of like staggered and you have to like think about both hands doing slightly different rhythmic things.
Yeah.
That's where the challenge lies in hand independence, in my experience.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
So that's just something to like really keep in mind. That's a skill that I use all the time when I'm trying to get my hands synced up. Is like where are the points where both hands are playing a note at the same time.
And with that bass method that you're talking about, is it consistently 1-5-3-5 whenever it's used anywhere elsewhere as well? Is it still kind of the same thing?
Yeah, it is. In this song, we'll get to the next sort of section later that uses chords in different inversions, but it does still use that top, bottom, middle, top thing.
Okay.
Or pardon me, bottom, top, middle, yeah.
Right, so then that would be something maybe good to develop some muscle memory for, even from outside into other songs too.
Totally.
Right?
You don't even need to be on the front of the piano to do that. You can just do boop, ba, da, boop, boop.
That makes sense.
You know?
Okay.
Finger dexterity is something you can practice while you're driving to work on the steering wheel or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So, having said all that, if you want to play this song really, really simply, you can go a long way with just straight whole notes.
Yeah.
Which is probably the way I would recommend practicing the song initially, especially if you're thinking about prioritizing your practice between focusing on your left hand and focusing on your right hand.
Right.
Whenever I'm playing something and I want to just play the song as quick as possible and kind of get it together as quick as possible, I'll really pare back the left hand,
Right.
so that the right hand I can focus on that.
Okay.
And then sort of swap it almost.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So there's different sort of steps to incorporating your hand independence, and this is a really great song to practice because the song itself is quite simple, but the rhythms, if you don't get them right, it's kind of the whole thing kind of collapses.
Falls apart, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to what happens in the next part of the song. So we have that sort of we sort of repeat that melody popping back from the E flat minor to the D flat chord. And then if you look down at bar 11, you can see that there's, it's a similar melody rhythmically, but it actually pops up. Instead of going, we actually pop up to, we started on G flat. So G flat, B flat, D flat, E flat. And that's that. So again, really all we're doing is just playing the black keys.
Right.
But in the right hand, or pardon me, in the left hand, we're still again doing that Alberti bass style accompaniment, but now we are we're playing a B major chord and then a G flat chord. So I have it notated, you can see at the top of your sheet music where we're playing those chords. And you're more than welcome, if you're just sort of a beginner, to just play them as root position chords. But I have it notated sort of the way it's done in the studio recording, which plays the chords as inversions. So your first, that B major chord is going to be, rather than doing it like this, we're going to move up one inversion and play your E flat in the bass, your G flat in the middle, and then your B up top.
Nice.
And then we're going to go down and play the G flat chord, and that's going to be in second inversion. So again, here's our G flat chord way down here in root position. G flat, B flat, D flat. And if we pop it at one inversion, that's B flat, D flat, G flat. And we got one more to go. D flat, G flat, and B flat. So that's. So let's just do 60 BPM.
Okay.
And I'll just pop back and forth between those two chords in their inversions before we start thinking about what the melody's doing.
All right.
So 1, 2, here we go. Back to B. I'll do it one more time. Yeah, so that's that. That's kind of the one part of the song that I find is probably going to be the most challenging. Once you guys get that rhythm sort of set in your heads, that part you know, kind of keep an eye out for it, just because the shape of the chords is it's quite different from, you know, like a root position chord kind of feels the same regardless of what chord it is. It always just kind of sits on your hands the same.
Okay.
When you're starting to play in different inversions, you know, it might be a bit foreign feeling.
Is that because the spacing is different between
Yeah,
the notes?
it's because the spacing is different. It's also, again, because we're playing in black keys. This is kind of just a bit of a mind bender anyways. So yeah, it's definitely might be a new feeling shape on the piano.
Right.
Yeah. So now I'm going to play bars 11 through to 14, and we'll do it to that 60 BPM click. So I'm going to show you what the right hand does, and again, pay attention to where, you know, pull up that sheet music and pay attention to where the notes are lined up. Your left and right notes are lined up, because that's really key to developing that rhythmic consistency in both hands.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So here it comes. So I'll play that one more time. I'll play it one more time here. 2, 3, here we go. Yeah, so again, similar melodies, slightly different shapes in the left hand.
Right.
Moving on through bars 15 through to 19 there, we just have it's a pretty simple movement. So we're lingering on that G flat chord. To B. So that's sort of the one moment in the song that has a bit of, I call it scale melody.
Okay.
In that it's notes that sort of move. It's like playing with the neighboring notes that you're playing versus making interval jumps.
Okay.
So let's bump this right down to 50, because this
Sure.
part's a little bit different rhythmically. There's some dotted notes, but just listen and play really slow and cycle this section as long as you need to. Okay. Here we go. I'll do it one more time. Okay. And then it continues on to, it's still lingering on that G flat chord. To D flat. So this is that same shape again, just D flat in root position, just like at the beginning of the song. Back to E flat. And then you're basically back at home base. There's sort of two sections of the song, and those are kind of the two parts.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know that's a big mouthful and a lot of stuff going on in both hands.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to just really simplify this stuff, just like what I was talking about at the beginning of the song here, we're just using whole notes. You know, I'll just go back to bar 15, and I'll basically play to the end of the phrase. And let's just we'll do it at 50 BPM. This time I'm just going to do whole notes because I really think that's the best way to start off with the song and get the melody. And if you're just wanting to show someone, hey, I can do a sound of silence, kind of follow my lead here. Okay. And as you become more comfortable with just playing that as a solid chord accompaniment, you can start, try quarter notes. You can try eighth notes. Sort of like never be afraid to experiment with what you can do, especially in the left hand.
Yeah.
At least in my attitude towards covering songs, especially when you're trying to make an arrangement as a solo piano player, is, honor the melody and make sure that you got that melody intact.
Yeah.
But your left hand, especially when you just want to just express yourself, kind of use whatever instincts you can kind of come up with, or you've gathered up through your practice.
Right.
And to me, it's like kind of go nuts with what your left hand can do. Whether you want to pare it way back, just whole notes, or you want to go play it verbatim with the Alberti bass there. It's
yeah, because what I was gonna say is all of those sounded actually really good and complete. It was maybe more stripped back, but it didn't sound less than the full thing.
Not at all, especially with a song like this especially with a song like this that's got that. It's such a beautiful song.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's one of those songs that you can really capitalize on your dynamics with, because if you are just playing it really, really simple, just gently pulsing. It doesn't have to be hard, right?
No.
Yeah.
That was beautiful.
Right?
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah, so it's all about just sort of feeling your way through it, really.
Sure.
You can make it as complex as you want if you want to practice, and really kind of be dazzling or whatever. But I don't really think piano or music is about that.
Yeah.
I prefer to just feel rather than look at me.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Different strokes for different folks.
Different
Some
strokes for
people
different
appreciate
folks.
different
This is also, again, like what I said at the beginning of the lesson here, this is one of those songs that it's a perfect example of like, oh, what am I doing all these triads for? Why am I thinking about all these like broken chord inversions all the time? Why is Jordan always making me have to practice that stuff? Like, because this is a song that's written using almost exclusively those kind of techniques.
Yeah.
So it's a good practice song to learn anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So is that it for the song?
That's the song, top to
through?
bottom. It's a really simple one. You can sort of make your own arrangements of it and maybe see if you can make it your own. But yeah, that's what I got for you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Let's check and see if we do have any questions
Yeah.
about the song. Doesn't look like it here. I do have one thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit now.
Sure.
Listening to the song, I absolutely love this song. The most popular version is an acoustic guitar, and 2 singers.
Yeah.
Am I right in assuming that?
Yeah, totally.
I'd say that's the most
Yeah,
popular?
absolutely.
So you are taking all those 3 parts that are there essentially, or
Yeah.
maybe 2 parts, more the melody and not the harmony,
Yeah.
and making those one piano arrangement, right?
Yes.
Now, if someone, let's say, wanted to play the song on piano and sing, how would you change what you've written out?
Basically, just play the solid chords.
Okay.
You might try to do this bass thing in both hands. You know.
Nice.
Hello, darkness, my old friend. Come to talk to you again. You know, maybe something like that, or just you can just totally let it ring out and do that melody yourself. It's actually a tough song to sing, as you can probably just tell.
It's a very tough song to
struggling
sing.
with that. Yeah, you know, but there's all sorts of ways to accompany yourself as a piano player. Generally speaking, I would strip back even further from what I've got here.
Okay.
This is something where what you just talked about just sort of brought to mind an idea of if you do want to experiment with maybe like referencing the harmonies in the song, because there's Simon and Garfunkel and there's the guitar basically.
Yes.
So in this arrangement here, the guitar is essentially the left hand. It's essentially that movement. But sometimes when I'm playing this song, especially when I get to that, you know, you can play it as, you can play it like a, let's see here. You can actually play the chords.
That's cool.
To fill things out a bit more. Basically, you can follow along with what the chords are written on top of each bar there and use that as your sort of reference point to if you want to maybe experiment with some harmonies in the right hand if you're feeling really, you want to challenge yourself.
I like that, and it's something that brings me back just on a guitar level when I'm maybe trying to make my own arrangement.
Yeah.
I love to just take a song, strip it right back to just what the chords are,
Yeah.
and then build from there to make it my own.
Yeah.
Right? I think
Yeah.
you can probably do the same in this case, right?
Totally. Yeah, that's sort of what, well, sort of what I did here. It's like you sort of, it's to me, I think of it as like taking the song and just like chucking it in like a pot.
Yeah.
And like
yeah.
boiling it down and then like re-putting it back together. What bubbles to the surface? You know?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. I like it. It's very creative.
Chuck it in a pot.
Yeah, chuck it in a pot. That's not creative necessarily.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's one more question here, which is a great question from
Cool.
Vincent.
Okay, hey Vincent.
He was wondering if there are Pianote t-shirts for sale somewhere.
There are Pianote t-shirts, yep, and we actually haven't priced them out, but they are, I've got some things cooking away in a different sort of pot for giveaways. So these Pianote shirts, we have them. They're really cool. They're very soft.
They look soft.
Yeah, they're very soft. Nice fabric. And yeah, they're absolutely something that I want to get in as many hands as possible. So definitely stay posted for that because yeah, they're sweet. They need to be dispersed.
Oh yeah.
We got Pianote shirts. We got guitar EO shirts coming up.
Coming up.
We got obviously the drum EO shirts,
Yeah.
all sorts.
Yeah.
Well clothed around here.
Well clothed, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, well, do you maybe want to wrap up with a full performance of the song?
Sure. I'll do a full performance, and I might noodle around and sort of do some little improv sort of stuff. But yeah, I'll keep it to this basic structure. And you know, thanks again for tuning in, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.
All righty.